From the shadows of unimaginable power and wealth comes a story that shattered the silence. This isn't a tale about fame or scandal, it's about survival. It's about a young girl who was silenced, used, and discarded, yet somehow found her voice again and made the world listen. This is the story of Virginia Roberts Giuffre, and how she went from being controlled to being unbreakable. Welcome to the complete chapter-by-chapter summary of Nobody's Girl, Virginia Giuffre's powerful memoir. This isn't just an account of one woman's suffering, it's an inside look at the machinery of exploitation, the systems that failed her, and the extraordinary courage it took to fight back. In this video, we walk through her journey from an abused child to a fearless advocate who took on some of the most powerful figures in the world. Part 1, Daughter. Chapter 1, Baby. Virginia begins with a vivid memory that drops us into the raw edges of her youth. A teenage girl sits alone on a Miami curb, her clothes torn, her face streaked with tears, and the world passing by as if she were invisible. That girl is Virginia, nicknamed Baby, a name that embodies both innocence and dependence. She has already learned that the world doesn't hand out safety. When a woman offers her help and promises of opportunity, Virginia clings to it with the fragile hope that maybe, finally, she's found someone who sees her. But that hope becomes the first link in a chain of control, one disguised as care. This moment sets the foundation for everything that follows, a young girl searching for love and belonging in a world ready to exploit her. Chapter 2, Growing Together. Growing Together was supposed to be a rehabilitation center, a place where troubled youth could find discipline and direction. Instead, Virginia finds herself in a place of strict regimens, punishment, and humiliation. The adults call it tough love, but there's little love and plenty of toughness. She is forced to confess imaginary sins, isolated for minor defiance, and made to turn against her peers to survive. Every lesson she learns here is the wrong one. Don't trust authority, hide your emotions, and never show weakness. The more she's punished, the deeper she retreats into herself. It's here that Virginia's distrust in the system begins to calcify, a crucial step that later makes her vulnerable to people who offer freedom wrapped in manipulation. Chapter 3, Virginia Lee. We travel back into her childhood, back before she was Baby, back when she was just Virginia Lee. Her home life is a storm of contradictions. There are moments of warmth, flashes of normalcy, and laughter that hint at what life could have been. But beneath that, there's chaos, neglect, and early exposure to cruelty. Her parents oscillate between affection and anger, creating a home that feels unpredictable and unsafe. She finds brief peace in the outdoors, riding horses, feeling the wind, and dreaming of open spaces where she might one day belong. These flashes of freedom are rare, but they become her emotional anchors, the fragments she'll hold on to when everything else falls apart. Chapter 4, Less Than Nothing. Virginia's sense of self is chipped away piece by piece. Within her own home, boundaries are blurred and trust is betrayed. She's subjected to physical and emotional abuse that convinces her she is unworthy of love or protection. Every insult, every act of violence, drives the message deeper. She's less than nothing. These experiences don't just hurt, they reshape her entire sense of reality. Shame becomes her constant companion, and silence her defense mechanism. The chapter is hard to read, but it's also essential. It shows how a child's worth can be dismantled long before predators ever appear. By the time they do, she's already been conditioned to believe she has no right to say no. Chapter 5, Venceremos. Venceremos, we will overcome. It's a word filled with optimism, but in Virginia's world, it becomes a cruel irony. At another facility meant for rehabilitation, slogans like this are drilled into the children's heads. They chant about strength, victory, and faith, but the environment is one of dominance and fear. Adults preach salvation while practicing control. Virginia learns how abusers cloak themselves in moral language, how manipulation can hide behind smiles and slogans. The lesson she takes from this chapter is not the one they intended. Words can't be trusted. Promises can be traps. It's a truth that will haunt her as she moves further into the darkness. Chapter 6, If Wishes Were Horses. Even in the midst of trauma, Virginia dreams. She dreams of a normal life, school dances, friends, a stable home. In stolen moments, she imagines what happiness might feel like. These dreams are fragile, easily broken by reality, but they are also what keep her alive. They remind her that there's something worth fighting for, even if she doesn't yet know how to reach it. The title, If Wishes Were Horses, comes from an old saying, one that captures the distance between dreaming and doing. For Virginia, it's not about fantasy, it's about survival through imagination. Chapter 7, A Ghost Come Back. When Virginia returns to places from her past, she's haunted by memories that refuse to fade. Old neighborhoods, familiar faces, even sense carry echoes of what was done to her. These memories don't just haunt her, they shape her understanding of herself. She starts to see the patterns, recognizing how one form of exploitation led to another. The ghosts of her past aren't just in her mind, they're woven into every decision she makes. She begins to realize that survival doesn't mean escape, it means learning to live with what can't be undone. Part 2, Prisoner. Chapter 8, The Pink House. The pink house looks like a dream. Luxury cars in the driveway, palm trees swaying outside, expensive art on the walls. But for Virginia, it's a prison disguised as paradise. This is where she's drawn into Jeffrey Epstein's world. He and his associates present themselves as benefactors, offering money, travel, education, but every gesture is a transaction. Behind the elegance is control, behind the smiles are threats. The pink house becomes a symbol of deception, a place that teaches Virginia that wealth and evil can coexist comfortably behind closed doors. Chapter 9, Tapping a Crooked Vein. Virginia begins to understand the mechanics of exploitation. Epstein's network runs like a business, recruiting young girls through flattery, money, and false promises. Each new girl believes she's special until she's replaced. Virginia likens it to tapping a crooked vein. Once a source of supply is found, it's drained relentlessly. The abuse is psychological as much as physical. Victims are made to feel complicit, guilty, or grateful. The chapter exposes the horrifying efficiency of human trafficking dressed up as mentorship. Chapter 10, A Very Important Man. The abuse spreads outward, implicating powerful men from politics, business, and royalty. Virginia describes encounters where she's handed off like an object, told to please men whose names carry influence and fear. These are men used to getting what they want, protected by layers of wealth and silence. Refusal isn't an option, compliance is survival. The chapter underscores how power itself becomes the weapon, and how privilege shields predators from consequences. It's not just Epstein, it's a whole system that allows men like him to thrive. Chapter 11, The Bottom of the Pyramid. Virginia begins to see the hierarchy clearly. At the top are the powerful men and their enablers. Below them, recruiters and assistants who keep the system running smoothly. And at the very bottom are the girls, used, discarded, and replaced. Each person plays a role in keeping the machinery of abuse alive. For Virginia, understanding this hierarchy is both horrifying and clarifying. It shows her that what's happening isn't random, it's organized. And knowing that becomes her first step toward fighting back. Chapter 12, Just Like You Do For Me. Routine becomes Virginia's cage. The tasks, the expectations, the endless repetition of exploitation are masked as favors or loyalty. Just like you do for me, Epstein would say, a phrase that turns obedience into obligation. Every small request leads to a larger one, and soon she's trapped in a loop of compliance. This chapter reveals how control doesn't always require violence. Sometimes, it's the slow corrosion of will through constant emotional manipulation. Chapter 13, Life with Other Men. Virginia is moved between locations and people. Each new destination brings another abuser, another set of rules, another name she must remember. She becomes adept at reading moods, anticipating danger, performing whatever keeps her safe. But the toll is immense. She starts to feel detached from her own body, as if she's watching someone else live her life. The constant movement robs her of stability. Every handshake hides a demand, every smile a threat. Life with other men captures the brutal monotony of exploitation, endless, impersonal, and dehumanizing. Chapter 14, Puppets on a String. By now, Virginia understands she's being orchestrated. Every event, every trip, every introduction is part of a larger choreography designed to please the powerful. The girls are dressed, trained, and displayed like puppets on strings, expected to perform gratitude and obedience. Even moments that appear spontaneous are staged. She realizes that her entire existence in this world is theater, and she's playing a role written by others. The realization is devastating but also clarifying. She's not free, but she can see the strings now. Chapter 15, A Bridge Too Far. Virginia begins to reach her breaking point. She dreams again of escape, of running until no one can find her. There are near misses, moments when she almost gets away, only to be pulled back by fear, by manipulation, or by the threat of harm to others. Each attempt makes her stronger, but also more cautious. The cost of failure is high, but the dream of freedom refuses to die. A bridge too far represents the threshold between endurance and rebellion. She knows leaving won't be easy, but she also knows she can't stay forever. Part 3, Survivor. Chapter 16, The Land of Smiles. Virginia is transported to a foreign country, a place known for its beauty and hospitality. On the surface, it's paradise, beaches, luxury resorts, and lavish villas. But for her, this land of smiles becomes another gilded cage. The distance from home isolates her even more, cutting her off from any chance of reaching out for help. She describes the cruel irony of how everything around her sparkles with wealth and joy while she is living in silent torment. The people around her smile for photos, toast with champagne, and talk of success, all while she and other girls endure the same hidden nightmare. The contrast between external glamour and internal horror defines this part of her story. It's a place that hides monsters behind polite laughter. Chapter 17, Bully Basher. Amid this darkness, Virginia begins to harden. The constant fear begins to transform into a quiet kind of rebellion. She becomes more aware of the manipulations around her and learns how to play her own small psychological games to protect herself. In a world where she can't fight physically, she learns to fight mentally by predicting moods, choosing her words carefully, and protecting the other girls where she can. She earns a nickname, Bully Basher, for her subtle ways of pushing back against the cruelty. It's here that Virginia's survival instincts evolve into strength. She's not just surviving anymore, she's starting to resist. Chapter 18, Honeymooners. Virginia recalls being forced into situations where she had to perform affection, to act like a girlfriend or a willing partner for men much older than her. These staged honeymoon moments are some of the most psychologically damaging because they blur the line between coercion and fake intimacy. The abusers pretend it's love, pretend it's mutual. But Virginia knows she's playing a role, one forced upon her. The illusion of romance makes the abuse even more suffocating. She learns how predators disguise domination as tenderness. Every compliment feels like poison, every promise another chain. Chapter 19, Down Under. Returning to Australia marks a major emotional shift. The physical distance from Epstein's network gives Virginia a fragile sense of freedom. She marries, starts to build a new life, and tries to bury the past. Yet even across oceans, the trauma follows her. The memories are not confined to geography. They live inside her, replaying in her mind. She struggles with trust, intimacy, and self-worth. Down Under becomes symbolic for her attempt to build a foundation under her life, to stand again on solid ground. For the first time, she begins to glimpse what healing might look like, even though it's far from complete. Chapter 20, Welcome to the World. Motherhood changes everything. When Virginia gives birth to her first child, the experience shakes her to her core. Holding her baby for the first time, she feels a love that's pure and unconditional, something she never believed she'd have. That love becomes both a gift and a mission. Her children give her a reason to keep going, to protect, to fight, and to ensure they never endure what she did. She realizes that she has the power to stop the cycle, to turn pain into purpose. Her life, once defined by what was taken from her, now starts to gain new meaning in what she can give. Chapter 21, A Person of Interest. Just as Virginia begins to find stability, her past resurfaces, this time in the public eye. Journalists, lawyers, and investigators start reaching out. Suddenly, the secrets she tried to bury are being dragged into headlines. Being labeled a person of interest feels like exposure all over again. She faces skepticism, judgment, and invasive questions. The trauma that once hid in the shadows is now being examined under bright lights. But this attention also offers something new, the possibility of justice. For the first time, her story might matter in a way that could change things. Chapter 22. He's a Tyler. Amid all the chaos, Virginia's family life becomes her grounding force. The laughter of her children, their innocent declarations, like when her son proudly shouts, "He's a Tyler," bring her moments of joy and perspective. These small domestic scenes remind her that life still contains beauty. She balances school drop-offs and court calls, therapy sessions and family dinners. The mixture of ordinary and extraordinary keeps her sane. Her family doesn't just heal her, they become her reason to keep fighting publicly, no matter how exhausting it gets. Chapter 23. My Very Own Princess. When Virginia welcomes her daughter, Ellie, into the world, the connection is instant and profound. She pours into Ellie all the affection and protection she never received. Every smile, every bedtime story, becomes a vow to be the kind of mother she needed as a child. The innocence of her daughter becomes both healing and painful. It reminds Virginia of what she lost, but also of what she can now safeguard. Ellie becomes her symbol of hope, proof that love can grow in the aftermath of ruin. Chapter 24. A Small Dent. Healing, Virginia learns, is not a straight line. There are good days and days when the old pain punches through unexpectedly. A sound, a scent, a new story. These moments feel like dents, small but visible reminders of what's still broken. But she doesn't let them define her. Instead, she learns to see healing as a lifelong process, something maintained like a fragile piece of art. Therapy, advocacy, and her family help her keep moving forward. Each dent tells her she's lived, and that she's still here. Chapter 25. Back in the Sunshine State. Returning to Florida feels like stepping into a living memory. It's where everything began, where her childhood dreams turned into nightmares. Now, years later, she comes back not as a victim, but as a woman determined to confront the ghosts. She walks past places that once held power over her, but now she holds the narrative. This return is both terrifying and liberating. Facing the geography of her trauma is the final act of reclaiming her story. She's no longer running, she's reclaiming. Chapter 26. Rocky Mountain High. Amid the turmoil of legal cases and media attention, Virginia allows herself moments of joy. A family trip to the mountains gives her rare peace. The clean air, the open sky, the laughter of her kids, it feels like a small miracle. For a moment, she's not a headline or a survivor. She's just Virginia, a mother, a wife, a woman breathing freely. These glimpses of ordinary happiness don't erase the pain, but they remind her that she's capable of living beyond it. Part 4. Warrior. Chapter 27. The Point of No Return. The decision to go public, to name names, and to face powerful enemies marks the moment of no return. Virginia knows that speaking out will change her life forever. The fear is immense, but silence feels heavier. She files legal complaints, gives interviews, and begins to turn her private nightmare into public accountability. This act of courage is not without consequences. She receives threats, backlash, and disbelief, but it also ignites a movement. Once she crosses this line, there's no going back to anonymity, only forward into truth. Chapter 28. Always My Daughter. Throughout the chaos of lawsuits and investigations, Virginia's children remain her constant motivation. She reflects deeply on the kind of mother she wants to be, one who teaches her kids about honesty, strength, and compassion. The public fight weighs heavily on her family, yet she finds ways to shield them from the worst of it. Her love for them becomes her armor. She tells them, "Everything I do is for you," and she means it. They give her a sense of direction when everything else feels uncertain. Chapter 29. I Solemnly Swear. Standing in courtrooms, facing lawyers and judges, Virginia takes oaths that bind her to truth. Every time she swears to tell the truth, she reclaims another piece of herself. The legal process is grueling, filled with procedural obstacles and emotional landmines, but she learns to navigate it with patience and persistence. Each deposition feels like reliving the past, yet she stays resolute. I solemnly swear becomes her personal creed, a declaration not just in court but in life. She will never be silenced again. Chapter 30. A Reckoning Begins. The world begins to shift. Investigations expand, journalists dig deeper, and survivors start finding each other. The silence that once protected the powerful begins to crack. Virginia sees how her story sparks change in places she never imagined: boardrooms, universities, political offices. The reckoning is slow, incomplete, but real. She knows justice won't happen overnight, but seeing cracks in the wall is enough to keep her going. Chapter 31, A Taste of Justice. Epstein's arrest and the resulting attention bring a complicated mix of relief and rage. For the first time, she witnesses consequences, however partial. The public finally sees what she has known for years. But justice doesn't taste as sweet as she expected. It's bitter, tangled with grief. The legal outcomes can't erase the pain, nor resurrect lost innocence. Yet, seeing accountability, even in fragments, reminds her that truth still matters. Chapter 32, Survivor Sisters Unite. Virginia connects with other women who live through similar horrors. Together, they form a sisterhood bound by pain and purpose. They share stories, support one another, and stand shoulder to shoulder in advocacy. This collective strength becomes transformative. For years, Virginia felt isolated, but now she's part of a movement, a force too large to silence. The unity of survivors becomes one of the most powerful weapons against the systems that once silenced them. Chapter 33, Unbroken. In this stage of her journey, Virginia stands tall. She's no longer defined by what was done to her, but by what she's chosen to do about it. Unbroken is her declaration of identity. She has endured everything and still stands whole. Her past remains part of her story, but not the ending. The woman who once saw herself as powerless now commands her own narrative. This chapter glows with resilience. It's not triumphalism, but quiet, undeniable strength. Chapter 34, From Bad to Worse. Even as justice begins to move forward, the backlash intensifies. Powerful figures retaliate through lawsuits, smear campaigns, and intimidation. Virginia faces waves of hostility from those desperate to preserve their reputations. Each attack reopens old wounds, but also proves how much power her truth carries. The harder they push back, the more determined she becomes. She learns that courage is not the absence of fear, it's acting in spite of it. Chapter 35, Backlash. The pressure escalates into a global spectacle. Virginia's name fills headlines, sometimes twisted by misinformation. She's accused of lies, her motives questioned, her credibility attacked. Yet, she continues to speak, refusing to be buried by the weight of doubt. Her composure under fire becomes its own form of resistance. She realizes that for many survivors, visibility itself is a revolutionary act. The backlash only strengthens her resolve. Chapter 36, Maxwell on Trial. When Ghislaine Maxwell finally faces trial, it's a watershed moment. Virginia, along with other survivors, watches as years of secrets are aired in court. Testimonies, evidence, and cross-examinations unfold like a reckoning decades in the making. Maxwell's conviction is more than a legal outcome. It's validation that the survivors were always telling the truth. The trial doesn't erase the pain, but it delivers acknowledgement, the one thing Virginia fought for most of her life. Chapter 37, Settling Up and Settling Down. After years of fighting, Virginia finally reaches settlements in some of her cases. The money isn't about wealth, it's about closure, a practical means to rebuild. She uses it to create stability for her family, to fund advocacy efforts, and to support survivors. Yet, even with victories, the emotional weight remains. She continues therapy, focuses on her children, and starts to imagine a quieter life. For the first time, peace feels possible. Chapter 38, Nobody's Girl. The final chapter brings her story full circle. Nobody's Girl is not a label of isolation, it's a declaration of independence. She is no longer property, no longer defined by the people who hurt her. She belongs to herself. She reflects on her journey, from the curb in Miami to courtrooms and campaigns, and realizes that every scar has become a line in her story of survival. Her voice, once stolen, now echoes on behalf of countless others. The story closes with hope, not because everything is fixed, but because she has proven that healing, though slow, is possible. Virginia ends not as a victim, but as a woman who turned silence into strength. Virginia's story doesn't end with revenge, it ends with reclamation. She transforms the pain of her past into power for her future, standing as proof that survival is not just about endurance, but about transformation. Her fight sparks conversations around the world, challenging the systems that let predators thrive and reminding us that justice, though slow, is possible. Nobody's Girl is ultimately about what it means to own your story, to find strength in vulnerability, and to rise from the ashes of abuse with a voice that refuses to be silenced. It's a call to empathy, to action, and to never turn away from the truth.